Hello, everyone. This is IPython Jupyter Dev meeting for January 5th, our first meeting of 2016. There are a lot of people missing, so hopefully it'll be a quick one. We'll get started. Not a whole lot has happened since with the holidays and such, but done mostly Jupyter Hub related things. Cut a release of the configurable HTTP proxy with more SSL config, and the defaults do better. Have more secure defaults, so you don't have to do as much configuring, although now it's easier to do that configuring. And then we've got the first implementation of the form for custom spawning merged into Jupyter Hub, and playing with that with folks at UCSD and CERN. And then the next thing on my list is having Jupyter Hub users with multiple servers per user, which is a database change, which is the first time we've had one of those in Jupyter Hub since people started actually using it, so that'll be an interesting thing to work on. And then the last things, yesterday and today I wrote a little toy release page that renders a page showing for branches on all our repos, how many commits do we have since our last release. Just as a simple summary of like, oh, we've made 20 commits and IPyKernel, we should maybe cut a release of that soon. Yeah, that's about it.
Hello, so I'm next on the list. I've been away until I sort of got back to my house at 5:30 this afternoon. But I started doing some work remotely yesterday. I'm going to be working on putting together an abstract for a conference on scientific publishing, which is in Germany in the summer. That was that was the last thing I was doing before going home for Christmas. And then I'm also intending to do some work on the paper relating to the notebook, which we've been saying for ages we need to publish, so that there's a citable reference for the software.
Great. Nick?
That's about it from me for this week.
Hi. Just getting back after the holidays and switching the new gigs, so I'm now full-time all the time, continuum until they fire me. And while I was not working, because I was trying to not work too much when I actually had some time off, I did slam together a little widget that uses Watchdog to watch local files. I don't have a bindery up yet or anything, and it wouldn't make any sense anyway because you wouldn't actually have access to the local files necessarily, but it works pretty nice with I'm working on Excel and it updates my chart. I'm working on my SVG and it updates my slides, whatever. Kind of motivated by people's frustrations with re-rendering Markdown all the time or whatever just to get some new data in, or rerunning whole notebooks when they had already done a bunch of widget work. So that's coming along nicely. Over on NB Present, I'm working on getting the Rise slideshows imported. The just regular slideshows imported. Nothing too exciting there, but it does take a little bit more UI chops, because now you can say, I want to put this Markdown input on the page, or I want to put this whole cell with input output widgets on there. And I've been looking at 4.1, and I'll probably pick up the color scheme for how it's indicating which types of things are being used, which should be nice. And then also for continuing working on their on the Anaconda Cloud upload button, which should be pretty cool when it works, because it'll be just a one-shot, take care of the trust down CLI, and then have a button you can press to immediately share it and get a link with people. We could already do that with Gist and NB Viewer, but this is kind of a nice tie in for that line of things. Brings along environments, stuff like that. That's about it for me.
Am I up next? Sorry. I think Jason was there, but he disappeared. So yeah, last week I worked a little bit on the setup.py file of IPY widgets that was inspired by Fernando having trouble and then Sophia having trouble. Both of them having trouble was kind of like a red flag for me. So I tried to simplify it and make it a little more verbose. I had Sophia's help with that. And I'm kind of debating actually removing that. There's some logic in the setup.py file right now that calls out to npm, and it's only done for development installs. And I'm actually debating removing that and just having people who want to do development installs run the npm code separate. I think that would simplify things a lot, and I don't see any negative repercussions to that yet, but I'm investigating that now. I also sent O'Reilly some closing material, like my YouTube outro and a selfie and things like that. So that's should be coming along. Hopefully it won't take them too long to publish that material. And then this week, I'm going to be looking into ways of handling large floods of output in the notebook. And this is related to a class that Brian is teaching this quarter, intro data science class. He was saying that it's really easy for students to run into a situation where their notebook becomes unusable. And not only that, the JSON file becomes flooded and unusable, and they lose all their work. So I'm going to look into like cheesy ways of remedying that. Maybe like maybe just setting like a hard limit on the number of or the rate of outputs that can be sent to the notebook, and if they surpass that, just displaying a message, hey, you're showing too much output. I can't render this. But I'll also look into better ways of handling that. But yeah, that's it for me.
Cool.
Jason.
Great. Thanks for going, John. I was still updating my page. I put you before me. So I'm just getting back from holidays. Before holidays, I had a minimal notebook render as the phosphor component, which is now outdated based on some of the changes they've been making to the phosphor repos. But you can see what I had at the link in the hackbed. I'm going to be getting back into the stuff that Chris and Steve and Dave and Darian have been doing recently, and giving them feedback on that while I'm updating the notebook phosphor component. And I just was made aware of a big conversation happening on the Sage development list about switching to Jupyter. And in fact, one of the big things that came up was this flood of output problem that Jonathan just talked about. So happy to hear about that, John. And William also is looking at this right now. I think he's looking at doing some Sage, some revamps to how he incorporates the notebook in Sage Math Cloud. So you might ping him or look at that discussion on Sage Devel. He has some ideas as well that he's working with too. So it'd be awesome if you could ping him. That's it.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. So I spent some time formalizing our CSS naming conventions, particularly with how we deal with subcontrols. We're already following a pretty rigid pattern in Phosphor, but with the handling of things like adding children to panel or dealing with tabs in a tab bar, or like the tab close icon or a tab or something like that, we needed some more rigid rules about how we added CSS class names to those types of nodes. So we formalized all that methodology. If you're interested in what that is and what we decided on, ping me after the meeting. Happy to go over that. So updated most all of our repos to work with that. Still working through some of the final ones, but most of them are there. In the process of doing that, added a bit more flexibility to our tab bars and our split panels to allow the user to create custom tab nodes or custom split handle nodes if you so choose. So if you wanted really wonky tabs with like curved borders or something like that that I'm not going to implement by default, you can now do that just by defining your own custom tabs. That all assumes you need more actual DOM nodes in your tab than what we already provide. You can't just do it with CSS. As I was doing that, released a bunch of the widget repos as 1.0 release candidates. So if anybody has any changes or there's something there that you need and you want in 1.0 or you don't like and you're vehemently against it, now is the time to speak up before we release 1.0 final, and it's no longer possible to change any of that. Continue work on supporting Steve, Dave, and Ashton with the work on getting the Phosphide example repo Jupyter lab tab page thing that we're building put together. That's going really well. Some of those guys will talk about that next. And final point is that I'll be on vacation next week, so I won't be here. Everybody have fun without me. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I guess it's me. So we talked about the organization of commands that go into the command palette, and it required some refactoring. Basically, the idea that commands fall under subheadings, but multiple plugins might stuff commands into the palette using the same subheading meant that the palette needs some sort of strategy to merge new commands in with the old ones. And basically to sort them and to prevent duplicates. And that's been re-implemented, but the search functionality that was there isn't back yet, because now we have this sort of more complex nested structure. So that's what I'm working on now with Dave. And since Dave's not here, I may as well fill in some of the stuff that he's been doing. He took the external command palette stuff that we had, and he actually put it into the Phosphide example now, so that it's going to live in the Phosphide repo as one of the core plugins. And a version of it that runs and shows some commands but doesn't do too much else is visible right now, and we're actively working on it. That's it for me.
All right. Past few weeks, I've been working on the three main components of the Jupyter Lab that we're starting with: the file browser, the terminal, and the editor, making those feature complete, at least for what we established with the original feature set were. So those are all working as individual things, and I've got right now I'm working on putting them together first in Jupyter Phosphide, and I linked to a GIF that shows them all working in a Phosphide application. And so then I'm going to add, right now they're all basically just there, they're not interacting between them. So I'm going to add the features that allow them to interact with each other. As the command palette comes out, I'll add things to the command palette that interact with those things, and once we have menus and so forth, and build that app up. And the fact that it's in Jupyter Phosphor is only temporary. I'm actually going to take the branch that Jason made in the notebook lab, and actually serve it as another page in that branch. So once I have something working on the Jupyter Phosphide, I'll migrate that to the notebook proper, so it's not working, basically hacking onto an existing notebook server. It'll be part of the actual notebook itself. And that's it.
Do we have Dave Wilmer? No, we don't. Carol.
Happy New Year, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah. I've been continuing to come up with a recommended documentation workflow, and I got some documents in the link posted in the HackPad. Ideally, I would like to move that to some sort of Jupyter repo that is doc specific, but not necessarily Jupyter/Jupyter. I am also working with Eric Holscher and Cheryl Rosant and some other folks on Common Mark and Recommon Mark to improve the conversion of Markdown and notebooks so that they're rendered a little nicer in Sphinx. And hopefully working together, we'll get some results quicker. Pet project for myself to learn a little more about JavaScript is I want to build a dashboard that will take some of the metrics from both Read the Docs and GitHub and basically track the activity across all the different repos that we have to make sure that our documentation is fresh, that it's building correctly. And the one thing that I need that I'm being blocked on is permissions that are significant enough to make changes in the Jupyter repo hooks and things, and also all the Read the Doc repos are owned by different people. So I want to try and work over the next week to get that nailed down. But good stuff.
Yeah, just let me know, ping me or John or Matthias or Brian about whatever permissions you don't have, and we'll make sure you have them.
Thanks, man.
I think it's my turn. So I just came back from my holidays and this morning, and I started working on some layout issues in IPy widgets. And there is another PR coming this afternoon regarding the API for Interact. That is to become a bit more similar to the one of Sage, especially if the Sage forks are going to adopt Jupyter instead of the Sage notebook. So yeah, this is it.
I think that's everybody who's here. There's some more notes for people who didn't make it. Just checking in from Matthias and Sophia and Peter. But that's it for.
Sorry, Ben. I forgot to mention that I made a Jupyter IPython widget for matplotlib instead of having it pushed to the output area. It's now will be an actual widget. The only issue is we're still working through these pain points of how to get users to install it, because the matplotlib folks aren't keen on the whole separate install idea. They want them to be sort of in lockstep between the Python and the JavaScript side, so we're still working through that issue.
Wait, this also means that now matplotlib plots won't be saved with the notebook. Before, if you had an interactive plot, you saved it, it appeared as a static plot in the notebook later.
Yes, I do have a button, and right now it's called export, but we'll probably give that a better name, that actually renders the plot as a static output. And then when you close the widget, it stays behind.
Got it. So the widget is tampering with the output area?
Well, it's calling this IPython display logic with the image.
Oh.
So it's appending to the output area.
Got it. It's going back to the Python side.
Exactly.
And then doing a display. Okay.
Yep.
All right. If anybody got anything before we shut it down? All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.